Like, subscribe, and turn on notification for more amazing video. Respect!
Homeless man saves alien stranger's life, unaware of his fortune. The desert winds howled across the barren landscape, whipping sand against the hull of what had once been the proud starship Resilient. Now it was just another piece of wreckage on this forgotten world, much like its sole surviving crew member. Marcus Blackwood ran a calloused hand through his unkempt dark hair, squinting against the setting sun. His muscular frame, honed by years of survival rather than vanity, cast a long shadow across the rusty dunes. The stubble on his jaw had grown past the point of rugged attractiveness into something more feral, but there was nobody around to care. "Another day in paradise," he muttered to himself, adjusting the makeshift pack on his broad shoulders. 6 years had passed since the Resilient had been caught in an ion storm and crashed on this nameless rock. The emergency beacon had failed, and the rest of the crew hadn't survived the impact. Marcus, once the ship's chief engineer with degrees from 3 prestigious academies, was now just a scavenger picking through alien wreckage to survive. His home, if you could call it that, was the emergency escape pod he'd modified into a shelter. It wasn't much, but it kept out the worst of the elements and the occasional curious desert predator. The communications array he'd built from salvage parts sent out regular distress signals. But after years of silence, even Marcus had to admit it was probably futile. As dust settled over the wasteland, Marcus made his way toward a newly discovered crash site. The wreckage had appeared after last week's dust storm, the shifting sands revealing what looked like the remains of a luxury yacht. If he was lucky, there might be functional power cells or, better yet, preserved food supplies. The first stars were appearing when he reached the site. The vessel had broken into 3 distinct sections, its sleek design suggesting wealth and status. Marcus whistled low. "Someone important owned you," he said to the wreckage, running his hand along a panel of what appeared to be genuine Venusian gold alloy. "Might be my lucky day after all." He worked methodically, checking compartments and removing anything of value. The cockpit had been crushed beyond recognition, but the passenger cabin was largely intact. As he forced open a jammed door, the fading light caught something unusual, a faint blue glow coming from beneath a collapsed bulkhead. Marcus approached cautiously. In his years of scavenging, he'd learned that glowing things were either valuable or dangerous, sometimes both. "What the hell?" he muttered, pushing aside debris. It wasn't a thing. It was a person. A humanoid alien lay unconscious, partially buried under the wreckage. His skin was a vibrant blue that emitted a soft bioluminescence in the growing darkness. Despite the crash, the alien wore what appeared to be an immaculate brown suit with intricate golden accents and an elegant belt that seemed to be made of some exotic material. Marcus checked for vital signs, finding a pulse that was weak but steady. The alien was alive, but clearly injured. "Hey, can you hear me?" Marcus asked, gently tapping the alien's face. No response. Without hesitation, Marcus carefully extracted the stranger from the wreckage. Though years of isolation had made him wary, his humanity hadn't been completely eroded by solitude. He couldn't leave an injured being to die in the desert night. "All right, buddy, let's get you somewhere warm," he said, hoisting the surprisingly light alien into his arms. The trek back to his shelter was arduous in the growing darkness, but Marcus had made this journey countless times. The familiar silhouette of his modified escape pod appeared on the horizon, a pathetic beacon of home in this desolate landscape. Inside, Marcus laid the alien gently on his only blanket, a faded Terran military issue that had seen better days. He fired up his portable stove, heating water for soup made from reconstituted protein packs. It wasn't gourmet, but it was hot and nutritious. As the soup simmered, Marcus examined his unexpected guest more closely. The alien's features were almost human, save for the blue skin and slightly elongated ears. His clothing was clearly expensive. The fabric seemed to repel the dust that coated everything else on this planet. "Who are you?" Marcus wondered aloud, noticing an ornate pin on the alien's lapel. The insignia wasn't familiar, but it looked official, important. The alien stirred, eyelids fluttering to reveal irises that shimmered like liquid silver. For a moment, confusion clouded those eyes before they focused on Marcus. "Where The alien's voice was melodic, with an accent Marcus couldn't place. "You're saving," Marcus replied, offering a cup of water. "Your ship crashed. I found you in the wreckage." The alien accepted the water with shaking hands, studying Marcus with increasing clarity. His gaze took in the human's worn clothes, the patched boots, and the humble surroundings. "You saved me," he stated simply. Marcus shrugged. "Anyone would have done the same." A smile curved the alien's blue lips. "No, they would not. Especially not someone with so little, giving to someone unknown." He attempted to sit up, wincing slightly. "I am Talon Vex of House Vex, third dynasty of the Astral Confluence." The name meant nothing to Marcus, but the way it was delivered suggested it should. Marcus Blackwood, former engineer on the Earth vessel Resilient, current resident of nowhere important. Talon's silver eyes widened. "A human? This far from your territories?" He looked around the shelter with new interest. "How long have you been here?" 6 years, give or take a few months," Marcus answered, stirring the soup. "Lost track after the first couple of years." "Alone? All this time?" Marcus nodded, pouring soup into a chip bowl. "Here. It's not much, but it's hot." Talon accepted the bowl, his expression unreadable. After taking a cautious sip, he looked up at Marcus with what could only be described as wonder. "You have nothing, yet you share. You know nothing of me, yet you offer shelter." He set the bowl down carefully. "Marcus Blackwood, I believe fate has brought us together for a purpose." Marcus snorted. "If fate wanted to do me a favor, it would have sent a rescue ship, not another mouth to feed." Talon's laugh was unexpectedly warm. "Perhaps fate has a sense of humor." His expression grew serious. "I am not what I appear to be, Marcus. I am the chief executive of VIX Interstellar Enterprises. My corporation spans 17 star systems." Marcus froze, soup spoon halfway to his mouth. "You're... what?" "In your terms, I believe you would call me a billionaire," Talon continued, "though that vastly understates my resources." Before Marcus could respond, a high-pitched beeping sound came from Talon's wrist. The alien tapped a nearly invisible device, and a holographic display appeared. "Ah, right on schedule," Talon said, smiling. "My security team has locked onto my beacon. They will be here within the hour." Marcus stared, unable to process this turn of events. After 6 years of solitude and struggle, he'd rescued possibly one of the wealthiest beings in the galaxy. "I owe you my life, Marcus Blackwood," Talon said solemnly, "and a Vix always pays his debts." The desert night had fully descended when a low rumble disturbed the stillness. Marcus stepped outside his shelter, squinting at the horizon where lights pierced the darkness. A sleek vessel, its hull gleaming even in the dim starlight, descended gracefully toward the makeshift landing area Marcus had cleared years ago, in a futile hope for rescue. "Your ride's here!" Marcus called back into the pod, helping Talon to his feet. The alien businessman straightened his already immaculate suit with a practiced gesture. "Marcus, I cannot adequately express my gratitude. What you did today was basic human decency," Marcus interrupted, uncomfortable with the praise. "Nothing special about it." Talon's silver eyes studied him with curious intensity. "That, my friend, is where you are mistaken. What you consider basic is extraordinary in much of the galaxy." The approaching ship was smaller than Marcus had expected, not the massive corporate vessel he'd imagined, but a sleek executive shuttle designed for speed and discretion. It settled onto the sand with barely a sound, its engines humming at a frequency just below human hearing. The boarding ramp extended, and 2 security personnel emerged first, tall, muscular aliens with the same blue skin as Tylon, but with military-grade augmentations visible at their temples. They scanned the area with practiced efficiency before nodding toward the ship. "All clear, Executive Vix," one called. "Medical team standing by." Talon waved acknowledgement, then turned to Marcus. "Come, there's someone you should meet." As they approached the ramp, a third figure emerged from the shuttle. Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. She descended with fluid grace, her movements precise and elegant. Her skin was a deeper shade of blue than Talon's, almost indigo, with subtle patterns that seemed to shift in the starlight. Her corporate attire, a form-fitting suit in charcoal gray with subtle blue accents, managed to be both professionally appropriate and devastatingly flattering to her perfect curves. "Executive Vix," she said, her voice melodic yet authoritative. "The board has been notified of your recovery." They're quite relieved. Her silver eyes flicked to Marcus, widening slightly as she took in his rugged appearance. "Scylla," Talon said warmly, "this is Marcus Blackwood. He pulled me from the wreckage and provided shelter. I owe him my life." Scylla's professional demeanor softened as she extended a slender hand toward Marcus. "Then we are all in your debt, Mr. Blackwood." When their hands met, Marcus felt an unexpected warmth spread up his arm. Her skin was surprisingly soft, with a subtle texture unlike anything he'd felt before. "Just Marcus," he managed, suddenly acutely aware of his disheveled appearance and the years of isolation that had dulled his social skills. "And no debt necessary." A smile curved her lips, fuller than a human's, and with that same subtle luminescence as her skin. "Well, just Marcus, I disagree. House Vix honors its obligations." The medical team, two more blue-skinned aliens in white uniforms, approached and began examining Talon, despite his protests that he was fine. "You'll have to excuse the fuss," Scylla explained to Marcus, still standing closer than strictly necessary. "Executive Vix is not just a corporate leader, but a cultural icon among our people." "I gathered he was important," Marcus said, running a hand through his unkempt hair self-consciously. Scylla's gaze followed the movement, a flicker of something appreciation in her silver eyes. "You have no idea." One of the security personnel approached. "Ma'am, we've secured the crash site. The yacht is beyond salvage, but we've recovered the executive's personal effects." "Excellent," she replied without taking her eyes off Marcus. "And the cause of the crash?" "Still under investigation. Initial readings suggest a navigation system failure, but you suspect otherwise," she finished, her tone hardening. "We're exploring all possibilities, ma'am." Scylla nodded dismissal, then turned back to Marcus. "You must come with us. Executive Vix will want to properly thank you once the medical team has finished fussing over him." "I can't just leave," Marcus protested, gesturing toward his shelter. "Everything I have is here." Her eyes softened with understanding. "We can retrieve anything of value." "But Marcus," she glanced around at the desolate landscape, "what's truly keeping you here?" The question hit him harder than expected. 6 years of survival, of clinging to routine and the faint hope of rescue. Had it become a prison of his own making? I don't know," he admitted. Talon approached, having apparently escaped the medical team momentarily. "Marcus, I'm offering you a choice. A substantial reward, enough to start a new life anywhere in the galaxy. Or, if you prefer, a position within Vix Enterprises that would utilize your engineering expertise." Marcus blinked, the options overwhelming after years of having no choices at all. "I need time to think." "Of course," Talon said graciously, "but I'm afraid we must depart within the hour." "Security protocols." "I'll help him gather his belongings," Scylla offered, her silver eyes meeting Marcus's with an intensity that made his pulse quicken. Talon nodded, a knowing smile playing at his lips. "Excellent idea, Scylla. Take all the time you need." As Talon returned to the shuttle, Scylla stepped closer to Marcus. The desert breeze carried her scent, something exotic and floral that made his head swim after years of nothing but dust and metal. 6 years alone," she said softly. "I can't imagine the strength that required." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with her admiration. "Humans are adaptable." "So I've heard," she replied, her tone suggesting deeper interest. "Your species has quite the reputation for resilience. It's impressive." The way she said impressive sent a warmth through Marcus that had nothing to do with the desert climate. "Let me show you what needs packing," he said, turning toward his shelter to hide the flush he could feel creeping up his neck. As they walked, Scylla matched his stride, her presence beside him both foreign and exhilarating after years of solitude. Whatever lay ahead, Marcus knew his life had irrevocably changed, and not just because of Talon's offer. The transition from Marcus's makeshift shelter to Talon's executive shuttle was jarring. After 6 years of dust, rust, and scavenged parts, the immaculate interior of the vessel seemed almost obscenely luxurious. Every surface gleamed with polished perfection, and the air carried subtle fragrances instead of the metallic tang he'd grown accustomed to. "You look overwhelmed," Scylla observed as she guided him to a private cabin. Her hand rested lightly on his forearm, the contact sending pleasant ripples across his skin. "That obvious, huh?" Marcus ran his fingers along a wall panel that responded to his touch with a soft glow. 6 years of talking to myself, and suddenly I'm on a ship that probably cost more than the entire GDP of some Earth colonies. Scylla's laugh was musical. "Executive Vix believes in traveling comfortably." She pressed a panel and a section of the wall slid open to reveal a bathing chamber. "Perhaps you'd like to refresh yourself before we reach orbit." "I've taken the liberty of providing some suitable attire." Marcus glanced down at his worn, patched clothing and suddenly felt acutely self-conscious. "That obvious, too?" Her silver eyes sparkled with amusement. "Let's just say your current aesthetic is more rugged survivor than corporate consultant." Her gaze lingered on his broad shoulders, and she added, "Though it certainly has its appeal." Heat crept up Marcus's neck at her thinly veiled appreciation. 6 years of isolation had left him rusty at reading social cues, but Scylla's interest seemed unmistakable. "I'll leave you to it," she said, stepping toward the door. "We'll be breaking atmosphere in approximately 40 minutes. Join us on the command deck when you're ready." After she left, Marcus explored the bathing chamber with the wonder of a child. Real water, not the recycled, carefully rationed supply he'd lived with for years, poured from fixtures that sensed his movements. The soap smelled of something exotic and spicy, and the towels were softer than anything he remembered from Earth. Dressed in the provided clothing, a tailored suit in deep navy that fit surprisingly well, Marcus made his way to the command deck. He found Talon engaged in conversation with his security chief, while Scylla monitored several holographic displays. She turned as he entered, her eyes widening slightly. "Well," she said, her voice dropping to a more intimate register, "civilization certainly suits you, Marcus." Talon looked up and smiled. "Hey, Marcus, perfect timing. We're about to break orbit." The viewports showed the barren landscape receding beneath them. Marcus felt a strange mixture of emotions as the planet that had been his prison and his home grew smaller. 6 years, he murmured, placing his palm against the transparent material. Scylla moved to stand beside him, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her body. "Are you sad to leave it behind?" "Not sad exactly," Marcus replied. "More, I don't know. That place nearly killed me 100 times, but surviving it defined me for so long. And now you get to redefine yourself," she said softly. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden lurch of the ship. The lights flickered, and warning indicators flashed across the command consoles. "Status report," Talon demanded, his casual demeanor instantly replaced by commanding authority. The pilot's hands flew across the controls. "Drive system malfunction, sir. We're losing power to the main thrusters." Marcus's engineering instincts kicked in immediately. He moved to a nearby console, scanning the readouts. "May I?" he asked the startled technician, who looked to Tylon for guidance. "Let him," Talon ordered. Marcus's fingers danced across the unfamiliar interface with surprising dexterity. "Your power distribution is being rerouted through secondary systems," he muttered, eyes narrowed in concentration. "It's subtle, designed to look like a cascade failure, but it's deliberate." "Sabotage?" Scylla asked, leaning over his shoulder. "Definitely." Marcus pulled up a schematic of the ship's systems. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. They've created a feedback loop that's slowly draining power from life support to feed a hidden subroutine. The security chief pushed forward. "Impossible. The ship was thoroughly checked before departure." "Then it was programmed to activate after launch," Marcus replied, not looking up from the console. "The algorithm is elegant, almost artistic. If we hadn't noticed it now, it would have caused a catastrophic failure once we hit hyperspace." "Can you stop it?" Talon asked calmly. Marcus nodded, already working. "The approach is clever, but predictable. It's trying to overwhelm the safety protocols by creating thousands of minor errors." His fingers flew faster. "But if we bypass the standard response protocols and implement a manual override?" The ship stabilized, lights returning to full brightness as Marcus executed his solution. "There," he said, leaning back. "I've isolated the malicious code and quarantined it. You'll want a complete systems purge when we reach your destination, but we're safe for now." A moment of stunned silence followed before Talon began to applaud, the others quickly joining in. "Remarkable," the executive said. "Simply remarkable. You diagnosed and solved a problem that would have stumped our best engineers, and with an unfamiliar system, no less." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. "Just applying basic principles. The fundamentals of engineering don't change, even if the technology does." "Don't diminish your accomplishment," Scylla said, her hand coming to rest on his shoulder. "You just saved all our lives." The security chief was already reviewing the isolated code. "This is sophisticated work. Not many entities would have the resources or knowledge to implement something this complex." "Begin an investigation immediately," Talon ordered. "I want to know who's responsible." As the crew returned to their duties with renewed vigilance, Scylla guided Marcus to a private observation lounge adjacent to the command deck. "That was impressive," she said as the door slid shut behind them. "You've earned quite a bit of goodwill with the crew." "Just doing what needed to be done," Marcus replied, gazing out at the stars, so much brighter and clearer without planetary atmosphere to dim them. Scylla moved closer, her reflection in the viewport overlapping with the starfield beyond. "You know, among my people, there's a belief that when someone saves your life, your fates become intertwined." "Is that why Talon feels he owes me?" Marcus asked. "Partly." She turned to face him directly. "But I think there's more to it. You intrigue him as you intrigue me." The directness of her statement caught Marcus off guard. "I'm just a stranded engineer who got lucky." "No," she said firmly. "You're a man who survived alone for 6 years, maintained your humanity, and didn't hesitate to help a stranger. That kind of character is rare in any species." Her hand reached up to touch his freshly shaven jaw. "Humans have a reputation for adaptability and resilience, but you embody those traits in a way that's captivating." The intensity in her silver eyes made Marcus's heart race. After years of isolation, the proximity of another person, especially one as alluring as Scylla, was intoxicating. He found himself leaning closer, drawn by a gravity more powerful than any planet's. "We're approaching the jump point," a voice announced over the ship's communication system. Breaking the moment, Scylla's lips curved into a smile that promised continuation. "We should return to the others." "But this conversation isn't over, Marcus Blackwood." As they rejoined the crew, Marcus couldn't help but wonder what other surprises awaited him in this new chapter of his life, and how deeply his fate had truly become intertwined with these blue-skinned strangers. The hyperspace jump deposited Talon's shuttle into orbit around Lumina Prime, the gleaming capital world of the astral confluence. From space, the planet resembled a sapphire wrapped in silver ribbons, its vast oceans punctuated by elegant, spiraling cities that seemed to grow organically from the landscape. "Welcome to my home," Talon said, gesturing toward the viewport as Marcus stared in awe. "It's beautiful," Marcus whispered, pressing his palm against the transparent material. After years of rust-colored horizons, the vibrant blues and silvers were almost painful to behold. Their descent to the surface was smooth, the shuttle gliding between towering structures that defied human architectural understanding. They landed on a private platform atop the tallest building in the Central District, Vix Tower, the heart of Talon's corporate empire. "Prepare yourself," Scylla murmured as they approached the exit ramp. "News of your heroism has preceded us." Marcus frowned. "My heroism?" "Saving Executive Vix, then saving his ship. Twice a hero in less than a day." Her silver eyes sparkled with amusement. "Our media is quite interested in the human who rescued the most influential man in the confluence." She wasn't exaggerating. As the ramp lowered, Marcus was assaulted by flashing lights and floating camera drones. Talon stepped forward smoothly, shielding Marcus while addressing the assembled reporters with practiced charm. "Yes, I owe my life to this remarkable human. No, he's not taking questions at this time. Yes, Vix Enterprises will be making a statement later today." Security personnel created a path through the crowd, guiding them into a private elevator that whisked them upward to Talon's penthouse suite. The doors opened onto a space so luxurious it made the shuttle look austere by comparison. These will be your quarters while you're with Talon explained, leading Marcus through rooms larger than his entire shelter had been. Scylla will help you settle in and brief you on our customs. I have an emergency board meeting to attend. Apparently, nearly dying creates quite a stir among shareholders. After Talon departed, Scylla guided Marcus to a balcony overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking, spires of impossible grace reaching toward a lavender sky, air traffic flowing in orderly patterns between them. "It's overwhelming, isn't it?" Scylla asked, studying his expression. "That's putting it mildly." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "Yesterday, I was scavenging parts from wrecked ships. Today, I'm standing in a penthouse that could probably house a small colony." Scylla laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "The contrast is rather stark." She moved closer, her shoulder brushing against his. "There's something I should explain about my people, Marcus." "Just one thing," he quipped, earning another musical laugh. "One particularly relevant thing," she clarified. "The Luminians, that's what humans call us, have a different approach to personal connections than humans do." Marcus turned to face her, suddenly very aware of her proximity. "What kind of personal connections?" "All kinds." Her silver eyes held his gaze steadily. "We're a pragmatic species. We don't attach the same emotional significance to physical intimacy that humans often do. It's seen as a natural expression of mutual attraction or respect." Marcus swallowed hard. "That's certainly different from human customs." "I've noticed that humans sometimes struggle with our directness," she continued, her fingers lightly touching his forearm. "I find you extremely attractive, Marcus. Your resilience, your intelligence, your selflessness. These qualities are deeply appealing to me. And based on certain physiological responses I've observed, I believe the attraction is mutual." Heat rushed to Marcus's face. "You're very perceptive." "Is my directness uncomfortable for you?" she asked, genuine concern in her voice. "Not uncomfortable, just unexpected." He smiled, finding her honesty refreshing after years of talking to himself. "On Earth, there's usually more, ritual to these things." "Ah, courtship behaviors." She nodded, understanding. "We have those too, but they typically come after establishing mutual interest. Why invest in elaborate rituals if basic compatibility hasn't been confirmed?" Marcus couldn't help but laugh. "When you put it that way, it sounds logical." A chime interrupted their conversation. Scylla glanced at her wrist device and frowned. "Talon wants us to join him in the security center immediately. Something about the sabotage investigation." The security center occupied an entire floor of Vic's tower, staffed by blue-skinned technicians monitoring countless displays. Talon stood with his security chief, examining a holographic projection of what appeared to be personnel files. "Marcus, excellent timing," Talon greeted them. "We've identified the saboteur, a maintenance technician who accessed the shuttle before our departure. He's been apprehended, but he's merely a pawn." The security chief, a stern-faced Luminian named Krell, elaborated, "The technician received payment from an untraceable account. Before we could question him thoroughly, he activated a neural implant that wiped his recent memories." "Convenient," Marcus observed. "Too convenient," Scylla agreed. "This was professionally executed." Talon nodded grimly. "The plot thickens further. Analysis of the wreckage of my yacht revealed similar sabotage to what you discovered on the shuttle. Someone very much wants me dead." "Corporate rivals," as Marcus suggested. "Possibly," Talon replied, "but there's another angle we must consider." He gestured to Krell, who brought up a new holographic display, a map of the desert planet where Marcus had been stranded. "This is where it gets interesting," Krell said, his deep voice resonating in the room. "The yacht's navigation was specifically altered to crash near your location, Marcus. Not just on the same planet, within 5 kilometers of your shelter." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "That can't be coincidence." "Precisely," Talon confirmed. "Someone knew you were there. Someone wanted me to find you, or wanted you to find me." "But that's impossible," Marcus protested. "No one knew I survived the crash." My distress signals were never answered. "They may not have been answered," Scylla said softly, "but they could have been received. The implications hung heavy in the air. Marcus's mind raced through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. "I need you both to investigate this connection," Talon said firmly. "Marcus, I'm officially appointing you as a special security consultant. Your unique perspective may be exactly what we need." He turned to Scylla. "Show him everything he needs to know about our operations. Give him full access." After the meeting, Scylla led Marcus to her private office, a sleek space with views almost as impressive as the penthouse. "This is a lot to process," Marcus said as the door closed behind them. "Indeed." Scylla moved to a cabinet and retrieved 2 glasses and a decanter of iridescent blue liquid. "Luminium brandy. You look like you could use it." The drink burned pleasantly going down, leaving a tingling sensation on his tongue. Marcus welcomed the warmth spreading through his chest. "Someone's been watching me for 6 years," he said, the reality of it still sinking in. "Why? I'm nobody important." Scylla studied him over the rim of her glass. "Clearly someone disagrees." She set her drink down and moved closer. "We'll figure this out together, Marcus. I promise you that." The sincerity in her voice touched something in him that had been dormant for years. Without thinking, Marcus reached out and tucked a strand of her silvery hair behind her ear. The simple contact sent electricity through his fingertips. Scylla leaned into his touch, her silver eyes darkening with desire. "There are many ways to process shock and stress," she whispered. "My people believe that physical connection helps center the mind." Marcus found himself drawing her closer, years of isolation melting away in the heat of her proximity. "Is that a professional recommendation?" he asked, his voice husky. "Entirely personal," she replied, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that started gentle but quickly blazed into something more urgent. Her skin was warmer than a human's, with a subtle texture that heightened every sensation. Marcus lost himself in the moment, in the impossible reality of connection after so many years alone. Later, as they lay tangled together on the office's plush seating area, Scylla traced patterns on his chest with delicate fingers. "Your species continues to fascinate me," she murmured, such passion beneath such restraint. Marcus smiled, feeling more at peace than he had in years. "I think we have a lot to learn from each other." Little did they know how prophetic those words would prove to be. 3 days into their investigation, Marcus and Scylla had established a rhythm, professionally and personally. By day, they sifted through mountains of data, interviewed personnel, and analyzed security footage. By night, they explored their growing connection, finding solace in each other amid the mounting tension. "I found something," Marcus announced, looking up from the holographic terminal in Scylla's office. "The navigation logs from my original ship, the Resilient. I've been comparing them with Talon's yacht crash data." Scylla moved behind him, resting her hands on his shoulders. The casual intimacy of her touch still sent pleasant shivers down his spine. "What did you discover, Yonasun?" she asked, her breath warm against his ear. "The ion storm that crashed my ship 6 years ago wasn't natural." He pulled up side-by-side comparisons of energy readings. "See these patterns? They're nearly identical to the energy signature that disabled Talon's yacht. Both were artificially generated." Scylla's fingers tightened on his shoulders. "You're saying your crash was deliberate? That someone stranded you on purpose?" "Exactly." Marcus leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "Someone's been playing a very long game." "But why?" Scylla circled around to face him. "Why strand a human engineer for 6 years only to orchestrate a meeting with Talon?" Before Marcus could respond, the office door slid open. Talon entered, accompanied by Krell and 2 security officers. "We have a situation," Talon announced grimly. "The board has called an emergency session." "There are accusations being made?" "What kind of accusations?" Scylla asked, straightening her posture. "That I've endangered the company by bringing a human into our highest security levels." Talon's silver eyes fixed on Marcus. "That I've been compromised by human influence?" Marcus felt his stomach drop. "Who's making these claims?" "Director Prell and his faction," Krell replied. "They've always been traditional in their views." "Xenophobic, you mean?" Scylla corrected sharply. Prell has opposed any collaboration with non-Luminians since he joined the board. Talon nodded. He's gathered significant support. The timing is suspicious, given our investigation. It's more than suspicious, Marcus said, gesturing to his findings. Look at this. Someone deliberately crashed my ship 6 years ago, then arranged for me to rescue Talon. Now suddenly there's opposition to my presence? These can't be coincidences. Krell studied the data with narrowed eyes. This changes everything. If your original crash was engineered, then this conspiracy predates your arrival by years. We need to attend this board meeting, Sila insisted. If Prell is behind this, we can't make accusations without proof, Talon cautioned. But yes, your presence would be informative. He turned to Marcus, especially yours. Let's see how they react to the human they're so concerned about. The boardroom occupied the highest level of Vix Tower, its transparent ceiling offering a view of Lumina Prime's lavender sky. 20 Luminian executives sat around a crescent-shaped table, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile as Marcus entered with Talon and Sila. Director Prell, distinguished by his deeper blue skin and ornate silver adornments, rose immediately. This is outrageous, Talon. Bringing the human to a closed board session? As my security consultant, Marcus has every right to be here, Talon replied calmly, taking his seat at the center of the crescent, especially since he appears to be the subject of discussion. The subject is your judgment, Prell retorted, his silver eyes flashing. First, you allow yourself to be rescued by this primitive species, then you grant him access to our most sensitive operations? Marcus felt Sila tense beside him, but maintained his composure. He'd faced worse than boardroom politics during his years of survival. I'm curious, Director Prell, Marcus said, his voice steady. How did you know I rescued Executive Vix? The official statement mentioned only that he'd been recovered after a navigation malfunction. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Prell's face. It's common knowledge. Now perhaps, Talon interjected, but you raised your objections before the media reported those details. Murmurs spread around the table as other board members exchanged glances. This is absurd, Prell sputtered. You're deflecting from the real issue, that humans cannot be trusted with our technology. Their history is rife with violence and conquest. Unlike the Luminians? Marcus asked innocently. I've been studying your history. The hegemony wars weren't exactly peaceful. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Sila suppressed a smile. Ancient history, Prell dismissed. We've evolved beyond such barbarism. Have you? Marcus stepped forward, activating his datapad. Because I've discovered something interesting about my shipwreck 6 years ago. It wasn't an accident. He projected the comparative analysis for all to see. The same technology that sabotaged Executive Vix's yacht was used to down my ship. Someone wanted me stranded on that planet. The boardroom erupted in shocked exclamations. Talon raised a hand for silence. There's more, Marcus continued. The yacht's navigation was specifically altered to crash near my location. Someone arranged our meeting. All eyes turned to Prell, whose blue skin had paled noticeably. This is fabricated evidence, he stammered. The human is trying to distract us from his infiltration. The evidence is verified, Krell stated flatly. And there's another curious detail. The untraceable account that paid the saboteur, we traced it. The encryption was sophisticated, but not impenetrable. Prell's hand moved toward his wrist device, but Krell was faster. The security chief activated a field that immobilized the director. Prell Industries has been losing market share to Vix Enterprises for decades, Talon explained to the stunned board. But recently they've made remarkable technological advances, particularly in navigation systems. Systems remarkably similar to those being developed by a brilliant human engineer who disappeared 6 years ago, Sila added, placing a supportive hand on Marcus's arm. Understanding dawned on Marcus. They stole my research. The Resilient was carrying prototypes of my navigation algorithms. They crashed my ship, took my work, and left me to die. But you didn't die, Talon said with admiration. You survived. And when Prell learned I was expanding into human territories, potentially discovering the source of his stolen technology, he arranged for our paths to cross, hoping to eliminate both threats at once. "You can't prove any of this," Krell snarled, struggling against the immobilization field. "Actually, we can," Krell replied. "Your personal files make for interesting reading, Director. You should have used better encryption." As security personnel led the disgraced director away, the remaining board members erupted in discussion. Talon guided Marcus and Scylla to a private antechamber. "You've done it," Talon said, clasping Marcus's shoulder. "You've exposed a conspiracy that's been undermining us for years." "We did it together," Marcus corrected, his hand finding Scylla's. "But there's still something I don't understand. Why arrange for me to rescue you? Why not just eliminate both of us?" Scylla's eyes widened with sudden realization. "Because of me. Prell's son has been pursuing me for years. I've rejected his advances, but Luminian tradition allows for claiming rights through heroic deeds. If you had died saving Talon," Marcus reasoned, "and I was blamed as the human saboteur, Prell's son would have avenged your treachery and claimed me as his prize." Scylla finished, disgust evident in her voice. "Two rivals eliminated and a desired mate acquired, all in one scheme." Talon shook his head in disbelief. "The arrogance is astounding." "What happens now?" Marcus asked. "Justice happens," Talon replied firmly. "Prell will face trial for corporate espionage, attempted murder, and theft of intellectual property." He smiled at Marcus. "Your intellectual property, which will be restored to you with full credit and compensation." "And us?" Marcus asked, turning to Scylla. "Where do we go from here?" Her silver eyes softened as she stepped closer. "That depends. My family will have opinions about my relationship with a human. Our cultural differences can be navigated," Marcus finished, taking her hands in his, "if we want to navigate them together." The look they shared spoke volumes, a promise of possibilities neither had imagined possible days earlier. "I believe," Talon said with a knowing smile, "that this calls for a celebration, the kind that makes headlines throughout the confluence." The Grand Hall of Vic's tower sparkled with the luminescence of 1,000 floating light orbs, each pulsing gently in harmony with the ambient music. The space had been transformed for what Luminian media was calling the technological event of the decade. Dignitaries from 17 star systems mingled with corporate elites, their conversations creating a melodic hum beneath a soaring architecture. Marcus adjusted the collar of his formal attire. A midnight blue suit, custom-tailored to human proportions, but incorporating traditional Luminian design elements. After weeks of preparation, the moment had arrived. The official unveiling of the Blackwood navigation system and the launch of Vic's Blackwood Technologies, a joint venture that would revolutionize interstellar travel. Nervous? Scylla appeared at his side, resplendent in a flowing gown that complemented her indigo skin. The traditional formal wear of her people somehow managed to be both elegant and alluring, with strategic cutouts that revealed glimpses of her luminescent skin. "Terrified," Marcus admitted, taking her hand. "6 weeks ago, I was heating soup over a portable stove. Now I'm about to address the most influential beings in the confluence." Scylla's silver eyes sparkled with amusement. "You faced down saboteurs and survived 6 years alone on a desolate planet, yet public speaking frightens you. Humans are wonderfully contradictory creatures." "One of our many charms," he replied, pulling her closer. The weeks since Prell's arrest had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, technology verification, and, most challenging of all, navigating the cultural complexities of their relationship. Scylla's family had initially reacted with shock to her involvement with a human. Her father, a respected academic, had questioned the biological compatibility. Her mother, a cultural preservationist, had worried about dilution of Luminian traditions. But Marcus's undeniable heroism, combined with Scylla's unwavering stance, had gradually softened their resistance. "My parents are here," Scylla said, nodding toward a distinguished couple observing them from across the room. "They're still adjusting, but Father actually used the word impressive to describe you yesterday." "High praise indeed," Marcus chuckled, remembering the formal dinner where her father had subjected him to a rigorous interrogation about human customs and capabilities. "It is, coming from him." She squeezed his hand. They're beginning to understand what I see in you." Their moment was interrupted by Talon, who approached with a delegation of officials. "Marcus, the Galactic Commerce Minister, is eager to meet the human who's about to transform interstellar navigation." The next hour passed in a blur of introductions and explanations. Marcus found himself repeatedly describing how his algorithm could reduce hyperspace calculation times by 60%, making jumps safer and more efficient. The technical details seemed to impress the officials, but what truly captivated them was the story behind the innovation. "So you developed this while stranded?" an avian diplomat asked, his feathered crest rising in surprise. "Not exactly," Marcus explained. "I had created the initial prototype before my ship crashed. During those 6 years alone, I refined the theoretical model without the means to test it." "Remarkable resilience," the diplomat commented. "Most beings would have surrendered to despair." "Humans are stubborn that way," Marcus replied with a smile. As the formal presentation approached, Krell appeared at Marcus's side, his expression tense. "Security alert," he murmured. "We've detected unauthorized access to the presentation systems." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "Prell's supporters?" "Likely," Krell confirmed. "We're tracking the intrusion, but haven't located the source." "What's the potential damage?" Sayla asked, instantly alert. "Unknown. The system controls everything from the holographic displays to environmental settings." Marcus considered the implications. They could disrupt the presentation, embarrass Talon and me publicly. "Or worse," Krell added grimly. "Let me access the system," Marcus decided. "I might spot something your security team wouldn't recognize." Krell led them to a discreet control room adjacent to the Grand Hall. Marcus immediately immersed himself in the code flowing across multiple screens, his fingers dancing across the interface with practiced precision. "There," he said after several tense minutes. "It's subtle. They've inserted a subroutine that would trigger when I activate the main demonstration. It would overload the environmental systems, causing a rapid pressure drop." "That could injure hundreds," Sayla gasped. "That's not their primary goal," Marcus realized, digging deeper. "The pressure drop is a distraction. The real target is the prototype itself. They've programmed it to transmit all its data to an external receiver, then corrupt its core algorithms." "They want to steal your work again," Krell growled. "Not this time." Marcus's fingers flew across the interface, his expression intense with concentration. "I'm not just removing their code, I'm rewriting it. When they activate their receiver." A smile spread across his face. "They'll get something special instead." Sayla watched him work, fascination evident in her expression. "What are you doing?" "Creating a reverse trace that will identify the receiver's location while sending them a corrupted package that will fry their systems." He finished with a flourish. "Let's see how they like having their technology stolen." Krell's communicator chimed. "Security team's in position, sir." "Perfect timing," Marcus said, standing. "The presentation starts in 5 minutes." As they returned to the Grand Hall, Sayla pulled Marcus aside. "That was incredibly attractive," she whispered, her lips brushing his ear. "Your confidence when solving problems, it's quite stimulating." Heat rushed to Marcus's face. Even after weeks together, her directness still caught him off guard. "Rain check?" he murmured. "I have a small technological revolution to launch first." Her silver eyes darkened with promise. "I'll hold you to that, Engineer Blackwood." The presentation proceeded flawlessly. Marcus demonstrated the navigation system with eloquence born of genuine passion for his creation. When the moment came for the saboteurs to strike, their plan backfired spectacularly. Instead of stealing the technology, they revealed their location to Krell's security teams, who swiftly apprehended them. "Remarkable," Talon declared as the audience erupted in applause. "Not only has Marcus Blackwood revolutionized navigation technology, but he's demonstrated human ingenuity in action by thwarting an attempt to steal it. Again!" The crowd's reaction was thunderous. Species that had historically viewed humans with suspicion now looked at Marcus with newfound respect. Representatives from human colonies approached with offers of partnership. Luminian officials who had supported Prell's xenophobic policies now scrambled to distance themselves from such views. As the formal proceedings concluded, Talon raised a glass in toast. "To Marcus Blackwood, who began this journey as a homeless human on a forgotten planet and now stands before us and is a partner, innovator, and friend to the Confluence. His story reminds us that greatness can emerge from the most unlikely circumstances, and that compassion, he nodded towards Scylla, who stood proudly at Marcus's side, can bridge the gaps between worlds. Later that evening, as celebrations continued throughout Vic's tower, Marcus and Scylla escaped to the privacy of the penthouse balcony. The city sparkled below them, its spires reaching toward stars that no longer seemed so distant or cold. "It's official," Scylla said, handing him a document. "The Interspecies Cultural Exchange Committee has approved our union, the first formally recognized human-Luminian partnership." Marcus took the document with wonder. "That was fast. I thought the process took years." It helps when one partner saves a prominent executive, exposes a conspiracy, revolutionizes navigation technology, and foils an attempted sabotage. She replied with a teasing smile. "You've made quite an impression on my people." "I had excellent motivation," he said, drawing her into his arms. The familiar warmth of her body against his still amazed him. How something so alien could feel so right. "What happens now?" she asked, her fingers tracing patterns on his chest. "You're wealthy, respected, no longer homeless. Have you thought about what you want?" Marcus gazed out at the horizon, considering. 6 weeks ago, he'd been scavenging parts from wrecked ships, hoping for rescue. Now the galaxy was open to him, filled with possibilities he'd never dared imagine. "I want to establish a foundation," he decided, "for stranded spacers and shipwreck survivors. No one should have to endure what I did, alone, forgotten." Scylla's expression softened. "The Blackwood Foundation, it has a noble ring to it. And I want this," he added, cupping her face gently. "Us, exploring whatever this is between human and Luminian. It won't always be easy." "The best adventures never are," she replied, rising on her toes to press her lips to his. As they embraced beneath Lumina Prime's lavender sky, Marcus reflected on the incredible journey that had brought him here. From homeless castaway to celebrated inventor, from isolation to connection, from despair to hope, all because he'd chosen compassion when finding a stranger in need. Sometimes, he realized, the greatest fortune comes disguised as misfortune, and sometimes saving another's life can lead to saving your own.